Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So we continue in our study of al-Akhdari as an extension of the study of al-Sulam in Maliki fiqh. And as is known, al-Akhdari is one of the best presentations of Sajda Sahu, or what is called the prostration of unmindfulness or forgetfulness. And we mentioned that there's some aspects or dimensions of the way that this is presented, which creates a challenge to have a conceptualization or to be able to imagine or picture in your mind exactly what is the prostration of forgetfulness and what is it related to, what is it all about. Now, firstly, we want to say that Sajda Sahu and the way that it's presented is dealing with the individual. It's dealing with the individual, the state of mind of the individual, the state of unforgetfulness, or the state of, I'm sorry, the state of forgetfulness or the state of mindfulness. And the reality of the situation is that the topic is how to correct the salah when a person is in a state of unmindfulness. The sajda or the prostration becomes the point of focus because because it's the means to correct the salah. Now there's some detail to that. Sajda sahu, it's about correcting the salah, and we should know that it accompanies the obligatory action when it's repeated due to a deficiency in it or due to it being left out, period, and then reperformed. And it covers for the sunan that are left out. It covers for the sunan that are left out of the salah. And there's two types of sunan. There's the confirmed sunan, which is primarily uh the focus in such a sahu, but also there's another category, and that is the what we call the light sunan or sunan al-khafifa, the sunnatul khafifa, sorry. And in that case, you have to miss three plus three or more in order for the salah to mandate that you correct that deficiency. Put in another way, Sajda Sahu, it applies to the deficiencies and the obligations, to the deficiencies in the sunan. The sunan are of two types. There's that sunnah that if you leave it out, which we consider to be the muakkadat or the confirmed sunan, one of these eight, if you leave one of these eight out, you have to make sajda sahu. The other sunan, you get a grace of three or more. If you leave out three or more, then you have to make sajda sahu. So the issue that comes up is that sajda sahu is about deficiencies in the salah. It's about accretions that are made in the salah. It's about repairing the salah, which is here. So if there's a deficiency, if you lack in doing something, if something is left out, if you added or you repeated something in the salah, right? Sajda Sahu relates to that. It relates to dealing with that issue. It's the means to address that problem in the salah. So it's about repairing the salah. It's about not invalidating our acts of worship, as the Quran indicates to us that tubtul amalakum, right? And so don't invalidate your acts of goodness. And so then it facilitates for us, it facilitates the correction of the salah with the goal of maximizing reward and ultimately the foundational level so that it is sound and we can have our act accepted, right? But mostly we're looking at making the salah sound, right? Because that's what's necessary in order for the obligation to be fulfilled, that the salah be sound, right? Then we can talk about other issues. Acceptance is from Allah wa ta'ala. Acceptance is from Allah. But what is upon us or what is our obligation is to ensure that the salah is sound. So if we make a mistake, there's some mistakes that necessitate correction in the salah, right? So Sajda Sahw is about that, right? So that's the theme that we're operating uh around, so to speak, and or the theme of focus and study. Any questions so far?
No.
So Sajda Sahw, I want us to have a conceptual map. I want us to have a conceptual map, and that conceptual map is important. So Sajda Sahw, it requires some knowledge. There's some prerequisites, and that's knowledge of the conditions of the salah, the obligations of the salah, the sunan of the salah, the fada'il of the salah. The reason why the fada'il here is striked out is because Sajda Sahw does not pertain to this section of knowledge, right? Sajda Sahw is primarily concerned with deficiencies in the areas of the obligations in the sunan. Conditions, just leave that out for the moment, but the obligations in the sunan is the areas of focus. So if an issue arises in these two areas or one of these two areas, then we look to search the cell for what purpose to correct it. So search the cell also requires knowledge of the makruhat and of course that which invalidates the salah. So this is the framework that should be mentally in place. You should be cognizant, you should be aware of, you should have understanding of the conditions of the salah, of the obligations of the salah, of the sunan of the salah, of the fadail of the salah, of the makruhat or that which is disliked in the salah, and that which is mubtilat or that which invalidates the salah, right? Before getting to sajda sahu. Because sajda sahu, it assumes that to be in place as far as a knowledge base. So sajda sahu is performed in two scenarios. Scenario one, when there's deficiencies in the obligations, or an obligation is an obligatory act is repeated, or there's both deficiency and a repetition, right? And not only in actions, but in words as well, right? There's some words or there's some speech in the salat, like the recitation of the Quran, that is an obligation, specifically al-Fatiha. So if in the first takbir that initiates the salah. So if there's deficiencies in that, this is something that would require correction. So a person may repeat the action, so then the person ends with deficiency and increase in the salah. So that's a scenario. Says the sahw never is standalone in this area. You always have to perform the action, or you always have to recite the word or the speech that is obligatory. The second scenario is the scenario of the sunan. So you may have a deficiency or an increase in the sunan, right? So not all of the sunan are the same. We have They're not all the same in ranking. We have the confirmed sunan and we have the less emphasized or the sunnah that's khafifa. So there's eight of these sunan which automatically initiate sajda sahw. If you miss one of the takbirs after the first, if you miss the recitation of a second surah after al-Fatiha, if you don't respect the rules of silence, meaning some salah are prayed silently and some salah are vocalized, right, in terms of reciting and so on and so forth. So what has to be silent, what has to be vocalized, is important to know, because if you miss that, if you miss being silent or if you miss vocalizing, then you left out or one of the sunan that are emphasized, or you left out one of the confirmed sunnah. Saying Sami Allahu liman hamida is also one of those things which has to be said, even if it's said silently, but it has to be performed. The first tashahhud and the sitting, the second tashahhud and sitting, these are from the mu'akkidat. And with that, we end the lesson today, inshallah. So these are the things that have to be focused on understanding in terms of a framework for sajda saho, in order to have a good grasp of what it is that sajda saho is all about. Without this framework in mind, it becomes a little difficult to really work with sajda saho, to know when it is to be actualized, when it's not to be actualized, and why it is actualized. But the goal is the correction of the salat and the increase of reward, and having the salat sound so that it is accepted, inshallah. ونستغفر الله ونتوب إليه